just don't want these like.
Hello. You first.
Good evening.
Hello. This is Plastered with Poe.
Brought to you by Sundown Striptease.
That's right. We didn't rehearse this. Okay, so I guess we should explain how this works.
Well, it's a pretty easy explanation. It's kind of like Drunken History, except not, so don't sue us.
Yeah, we love you, Derek Waters. Please don't sue us.
But a few of our friends and, people in the community are all getting together, not literally, just in their own homes.
Getting together COVID style. We can't see or touch you, but we know you're there.
Exactly. And, getting plastered and talking about Poe and his writings.
Yes. Edgar Allan Poe was a prolific 19th century writer of very, very spooky things. And his life was pretty fucked up, and so was his death. We're going to talk about that too later.
And so
in
were
the
a lot of
series.
his works.
Yeah, every goth kid's favorite writer. All right, well, I feel like, we've got a really jam-packed show tonight, so we should probably
just gonna go ahead and get started.
Yeah, let's get right into it.
First up, we have somebody near and dear to our hearts. That would be Lucky Strikeout.
Yes.
Who is a writer himself.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact.
Local New Orleans writer.
Check out his works if you haven't already.
Yes. Bringing you their wasted interpretation of The Raven. It's a big one, you guys. Without further ado.
The Raven by Lucky Strikeout. Or as drunkenly explained by Lucky Strikeout.
Cheers.
Hello, and good whatever time it is, wherever you are, at this point upon viewing. My name is Lucky Strikeout, and this is Plastered with Poe, Ignoramus edition. For while other people will be doing poems, short stories, shorter stories, mysteries, and the like, for you this evening I will be telling you all about The Raven. But not the poem by Edgar Allan Poe. I am discussing the 2012 John Cusack movie, The Raven. Nope, not the one where the world comes to an end all of a sudden and the rich rise up in a semi-proletariat revolt against the government. No, this is The Raven, and I'm coming to you live right here from the final resting place of Edgar Allan Poe, Baltimore, which is untrue. However, the 2012 film starring John Cusack, The Raven, was actually filmed in Budapest. So, this film, taking place in Baltimore, speculates the final days of Edgar Allan Poe's life. He is known to have arrived in Baltimore from Richmond, and then he disappeared. And according to the opening titles of this film, he was on a park bench, found, muttering to himself, and then died. Already, the film's premise is incorrect, for he was actually not found on a park bench. He was found outside of a tavern, inside a building that housed the tavern. No one actually knows exactly why he died. All of his records are gone, medical and otherwise, but already off to a very good non-historical start. What happens in this movie, where we find John Cusack channeling his inner Nicolas Cage in order to best give us his inner Poe? Here we go. So the film opens with a bunch of constables led by a lead detective by the name of Fields. They get into a house and they find a woman on the floor, throat slashed. In the chimney, another woman, also dead. It is not a war on Christmas, but it is something that bears a striking resemblance to what, you ask? It bears a striking resemblance to a short story by a certain poet and writer, who shall remain nameless and obvious. The short story, The Murders in the Rue Morgue. So then we cut to Edgar Allan Poe. He's going into a bar. He's got no money. He wants a drink. The bartender says, no, you don't have any money. And Poe says, hey, I'm about to get a short story published in the paper, so I'm just basically one piece of overdramatic writing away from being able to pay you. Can I just get a line of credit? The guy says, no, I don't even like your writing. The guy next to him is just like, I've never even heard of your writing. And Poe goes into a Bukowski-ish fury and starts running around the place, getting angry and... Yes, I'm having a wonderful time at this bar, except for the cretins who don't like my writing. It's Poe! The Raven! Poe! Poe! Which I think is a bit of a cliche, and I should know I am actually a very achieved, incredibly handsome, utterly brilliant writer myself. Poe! Meanwhile, Griswold, Poe's apparently arch-rival and nemesis, awakens to find himself tied to a table with a pendulum slowly swinging down, slowly swinging down, slowly swinging down, and a shadowy figure in the distance saying a bunch of sinister things. It's, not Shakespeare. Poe! Though technically it kind of is, because one of the co-writers of The Raven is actually somebody named Hannah Shakespeare. So, Griswold, of course, dies, sliced neatly in half, and when Fields and his coppers show up, because it is a more accessible Edgar Allan Poe story, they say to themselves, I think I know who we have to go talk to. Smash cut to... Poe! Now, Emily is a beautiful, pale, blonde with cleavage, who for some reason is incredibly enamored of Edgar Allan Poe, and her daddy does not like Edgar Allan Poe. Poe! God, I really think that's all there is to that particular story. So, we can move right on to the masquerade. How do we get to this masquerade, you ask? Well, you didn't ask, I just did, and I'm going to take you there right now. So, Poe and the policemen all gathered together and decide to go undercover at the party. Poe can easily go undercover even though Emily's father hates him because it's a masquerade ball. A lot of uninteresting stuff happens. The scene goes on for an eternity. It's just... While they're at the masquerade, a horse kicks open the front door and just runs on in. Everyone's running left and right, and in the middle of all this, because Fields is actually a very, very, very bad inspector, Emily does in fact get kidnapped. Emily! Everyone in town is of the impression that Edgar Allan Poe is staging all these murders in order to boost the sales of his books or to gain recognition. Who knows? They all go and they burn down his house, which is quite a feat considering the fact that Edgar Allan Poe was not residing in Baltimore at the time of his death. Should we worry about this? Nevermore. We move on. Edgar Allan Poe has no place to live. So, who does he end up living with? He ends up living with Fields, the inspector, kind of like an NBC spinoff. Poe and the Popo. Which actually begs the question, when a cop rents an apartment, does he sign a Poe lease? Ugh, idiot. A new clue comes to light, referring to a short story called The Cask of Amontillado. This leads Poe and the Popo, this might actually work, down into the tunnels underneath Baltimore. Anytime you think that you have found what you're looking for, because we are looking for Emily, just be sure to yell, Emily! Edgar Allan Poe, he's a writer. He kind of has to be the center of attention at all times. Poe! Emily! All times. A ghost! Oh no, they found Emily. They found Emily. They found Emily stashed somewhere underground in the dark, dank depths. But Emily! It's not actually Emily. It turns out it's just a sailor who's been dressed up as a woman? Was there a sailor in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert? Another clue leads them to the Holy Cross Church, where they find an open grave with Emily's name in front of it. The killer, watching from a distance, shoots one of the police officers and also wounds Inspector Fields. To which I'd like to add, Inspector Fields is a really, really, really bad inspector, with or without the help of a writer. You'd think writers would be good at catching criminals. You'd think there'd be a show about it. Nathan Fillion solves murders with some lady. Either way, John Cusack gives chase. And yes, starting now, we're just not going to call him Edgar Allan Poe anymore, or Poe, or Edgar, or Allan. No, it's pretty much John Cusack gets on a horse and gives chase. Emily! And fails. So throughout all of this, the killer is sending Poe messages saying, I want you to write some more stuff. So Poe is actually just being very, very, very... What's that word when writers are writing a lot of stuff? Starts with a P. Poe! It sounds like another word for a condom. Oh, yes. Prophylactic, writing different stories which are being published in the newspaper in order to appease the killer. Raven, Raven, Raven. Raven, Raven, Raven. Raven, Raven, Emily! Which doesn't help because the killer still isn't giving Emily back. So, Poe decides to write one last column, one where he offers up his own life for Emily, saying he will drink poison if he has to in order to get her back. Now, this suggestion is published in the newspaper. So the next morning, the maid delivers a letter to John Cusack. And that letter is the killer. The letter itself is not the killer, but it is from the killer, and it is explaining that, yes, I accept your terms, John Cusack. Your life for Emily's. But then, twist. Poe realizes that there is absolutely no way that the killer could have known anything about this because the paper hasn't gone to print yet, which means that it must be his editor, Henry, who's never liked him. No one's ever liked him or understood how brilliant he is, how incredibly brilliant his writing. Oh, Emily! So whom is the real killer? Surprise! Ivan Reynolds, the typesetter who was obsessed with Poe. Ivan Reynolds and Poe sit down and have a little heart-to-heart, a tete-a-tete, which actually turns out, as far as writing goes, to be very offensive. And this tete-offensive involves Poe going ahead and drinking poison. Something referencing the Telltale Heart, floorboards, people buried underneath floorboards. And also, I mean, have you seen that movie with him and Nicolas Cage? Not like Con Air, but also the other one that they did together. I think it was called The Frozen Ground. It takes place in Alaska. So the killer gets to make his escape because Nicolas Cage / John Cusack / Con Air has to go on the floor and dig around on the floorboards and say, Emily! And he finally finds her, but he's already interested in the poison. And they have a poignant moment where she talks about how much she loves him. Emily gets taken into an ambulance, carted off. I guess in the excitement, nobody notices Poe just kind of wandering away. Oh! So Edgar Allan Cusack wanders away and goes and sits on a bench. He sits on a bench like the movie said he would. Oh wait, right, that last scene, hang on. At this point, some old codger with a cane, and not old Biff from Back to the Future 2, shows up as Edgar Allan Poe is apparently dying in a very historically accurate fashion on a bench. And the old codger is just like,
Aren't you Edgar Allan Poe?
and Edgar Allan Poe is just like, sup, I'm dying. But more importantly, as he's dying, he says to the old man, Tell Fields, his last name is Reynolds.
What?
Tell Fields, his last name is Reynolds.
Well, okay.
Which is both an exercise and an example of really bad grammar. Tell Fields his last name is Reynolds. So you go up to Fields and you're just like, hey Fields, guess what? Your last name is Reynolds.
Well, okay.
Oh wait, Edgar Allan Poe's last name is Reynolds?
Well, okay.
Oh man, we totally have to re-envision Poe and the Popo for the 3rd season now. They're the same person?
Well, okay.
So my final thoughts on The Raven. More skin, less Cusack, more Nicolas Cage, more John Leguizamo. Also, less movie. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes less is never more. That's how that should have ended. With one exception.
Well,
That was something.
wasn't quite what I expected.
No.
So, I find it funny that somebody who's a writer chose to go with a movie.
Yeah, there's a lot more John Cusack in that than I was anticipating.
I
But
mean,
you
it's not a
know.
bad thing, I guess.
No,
I mean, I guess
we can get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Lucky Strikeout, everybody. His pay app info is listed in the video and in the comments. You can tip him directly, or you can tip us directly. And all of that money goes to the cast, and it will also be matched and donated to an esteemed organization that we will talk about later this evening. Who we got next? Let's keep this show going, this Poe show rolling.
Next, we have Sedna Hemlock,
Ah, Miss Sedna Hemlock.
who recently had a birthday in our fair month of October.
Yes, Libra sister. All the way. And they are bringing you their most favorite Edgar Allan Poe short story. And that is.
Which is also my favorite.
Oh, I mean, it's a good one.
Solid.
It is The Mask of the Red Death.
Hi guys, welcome to Plastered with Poe, and big happy birthday to us October babies like myself. I'll be, a year older by the time this video is released, so remember that when you enjoy this wonderful storytelling of one of my very favorite Poe stories. I gotta get into this. I gotta get a drink for this, right? Yeah, Plaster with Poe. So, alright. The Red Death had long devastated the country. No other pestilence had been so fatal or so hideous. Blood was its avatar and its seal, and the redness and horror of blood. These were accompanied by sharp pains and sudden dizziness and the profuse bleeding of all the pores with disillusions. The scarlet stains upon the body and especially upon the face of the victims were the pest ban that shut him from aid from any sympathy that he might have from his fellow men. The whole seizure, progress, and termination of the disease were incidents of only half an hour. Half an hour. I mean, I can stare at the wall for 30 minutes. The external world could take care of itself. And in the meantime, it was folly to grieve, to think. Folly to think. The prince had provided all the appliances of pleasures. There were buffoons, there were ballet dancers, there were musicians, there was beauty, there was wine. All of these securely within. Without was the Red Death. It was a voluptuous scene, that masquerade. Pretty much like Labyrinth, but maybe a little better, like if gays had been involved. But first, let me tell you of the rooms in which it was held. These windows were of stained glass, whose color varied in accordance with the prevailing hue of the decorations of the chamber into which it opened. That at the eastern extremity was hung, for example, in blue, and vividly blue were its windows. The second chamber was purple in its ornaments and tapestries, and here the panes were purple. The third was green throughout, and so were the casements. The fourth was furnished and lit with orange. The prince's Prosperitas Chiotis favorite color. What a nerd. The fifth was white, and the sixth was violet. And the seventh apartment was closely shrouded in black tapestries that hung all over the ceilings and down the walls, falling into heavy folds onto the carpet. And the same material with you. But in this chamber only, the color of the windows failed to correspond with the decorations. The panels were scarlet. And in this apartment, also, there that stood against the western wall, the giant clock of ebony. Its pendulum swung to and fro, heavy, monotonous clang. But there, a minute hand made a circuit of the face. The hour was to be stricken. And there came from the brazen lungs of a clock a sound that was clear and loud and deep and exceedingly musical, but so peculiar a note and emphasis that at each top and lapse of the hour, the musicians and the orchestra were constrained to pause momentarily in their performance to hearken the sound, and thus the waltzers ceased to perform their evolutions. Much of what has been seen since, there were arabesque figures with unsuited limbs and appointments. There were delirious fanciers and madman fashions. There were much of the beautiful, much of the wanted, much of the bizarre, and something of the terrible. And not a little of what which might have excited disgust. To and from the 7 chambers there stalked, in fact, a multitude of dreams. And there the dreams writhed in and about, taking hue from the rooms and causing the wild music of the orchestra to seem as the echo of their steps, and anon there strikes the ebony clock which stands in the hall of velvet. Spade. Velvet. And thus, too, it happened, perhaps, to the last echoes of the last chime that utterly sunk into silence. There were many individuals in the crowd who had found leisure to become aware of the presence of a masked figure, which had arrested the attention of no single individual before. And the rumor of this new presence had spread itself, whilst whispering around, there arose a length from the whole company, a buzz. If you didn't hear that, that was a buzz. Get all proper again. The figure was tall and gaunt and shrouded from head to toe in the habiliments of the very grave. The mask which concealed the visage was made so to resemble the countenance of a stiffened corpse. His vesture was dabbled in blood, and his broad brow, with all of his features, was besprinkled with scarlet. When the eyes of Prince Prospero Titodius fell upon the spectral image, which, with a slow and solemn movement, as if more fully to sustain its role, stalked to and fro among the waltzers, he was to be seen to be convulsed, and in the moment, with a strong shoulder of terror disaster, and in the next, his brow reddened with rage. "Who dares," he demanded hoarsely of the courtiers who stood near him, "who dares insult us with this blasphemous left-wing mockery? Seize him and unmask him, that we may know whom to hang at sunrise." And the dagger dropped gleaming onto the sable carpet, and upon which instantly afterwards fell prostrate in death the Prince Prospero Titodius. Then, summoning the courage, the wild courage of despair, a throng of revelers at once threw themselves at the figure in the black apartment, seasoning the mummer. Actually seasoning, not seasoning, but, cannibalism. It's this time of year. And the figure stood erect and motionless within the shadows of the ebony cloud, gasped in an unutterable horror at finding the grave cerements of a corpse-like mask in which they handled so violently and with such rudeness. But it was an intangible form. And then it was acknowledged, the Red Death. He had come like a thief in the night. And now, one by one, drop the revelers, and the blood bejeweled halls of their revel, and died each in their despairing posture of his fall. And in that life of the ebony clock went out the last of the gray, and the flames of the tripods expired, and darkness and decay and Red Death held illimitable dominion over all.
Give it up for Sedna Hemlock, everybody. Yeah. Oh, that makes a good tinkling noise. It's almost like applause.
Yes.
Oh,
There she
yes.
is. The star of the show.
Yes, show everyone your butthole.
What
Yeah.
talking about tonight?
The Meowsk of Red Death.
Yes, get the red.
Oh my god. All right. We gotta move it along because we have so much show for you guys.
All right.
For our
Next
fantastic premiere.
Next up, I think I already know, but yeah. Okay, next up, we have the most dangerous woman in the West.
Ooh, yes.
The Reverend Spooky Lestrange.
That's right. One of the first burlesque people I ever met in New Orleans. And just all around beautiful creep. Bringing you their interpretation of the Imp of the Perverse.
I'm so excited for this one.
Yeah. Reverend Spooky Lestrange.
We stand upon the brink of a precipice. We peer into the abyss. We grow sick and dizzy. Our first impulse is to shrink away from the danger. Unaccountably we remain. It is but a thought, although a fearful one, and one which chills the very marrow of our bones with the fierceness of the delight of its horror. It is merely the idea of what would be our sensations during the sweeping precipitancy of a fall from such a height. For this very cause do we now the most vividly desire it. Good evening. I'm the Reverend Spooky Lestrange, the most dangerous woman in burlesque, and this is my fucked up take on The Imp of the Perverse by Edgar Allan Poe, the original Spooky Boy. So, Edgar Allan Poe, the original Spooky Boy. So The Imp of the Perverse is actually this short story / essay that he wrote about basically theorizing that all people have self-destructive tendencies and not everyone has the wherewithal to keep those tendencies in check, and inevitably they give themselves away. So, there's that. But let me tell you about this story. Just a minute, because I'm going to take some clothes off. Hi, back again. Reverend Spooky the Strange here. We're discussing The Imp of the Perverse. Or really, I'm discussing it. You guys are listening to me, but mostly you're just staring at my tits, which is totally cool. So, in The Imp of the Perverse, there is a man who really wants his inheritance. So he finds a way to poison a candle. And he replaces the candle. Oh, God. So, anyway, the person whose money he wants. The person whose money he wants. So he kills him with a poison candle, right? And throws the candle away and puts the old candle back. So, eventually, the coroner decides that there's no foul play. The guy died of natural causes. So let's close the book and give this guy his money. The killer inherits, and he gets away scot-free. There's no evidence against him. But then he starts thinking too much. Like, he starts going into his head too much, and he just, starts making all these assumptions without really, knowing. And then he gets kind of ballsy, and just, he's like, well, no one is going to think anything if I, Well, first he's like, I'm not going to ever confess. That's just stupid. But then, he starts thinking about it. He's like, oh, wait. He's like, the only way they could ever catch me is if I confess. I got away scot-free. But, what are all the implications now that I've gotten away scot-free without having to, answer for any of the bad shit that I've done? And the guy's living large. The guy's living high in the hog. He's fucking all the best bitches, and he's got all the money, and he's got all the food, and he's throwing feasts and parties and treating everybody, because he's got all the money now, and he got away with fucking murder, but he's not happy. He's not content because he's too much in his own head. So he self-sabotages, which is, learn that word, guys, self-sabotage. You gotta, hold up, I'll be right back. Well, anyway, so, the guy got away scot-free. There's no evidence against him. The only evidence there was, he got rid of it. So there's nothing to tie him down or hold him down. There's no fucking apron strings holding him to this murder. But he has to keep running his mouth, and he basically drives himself crazy. I mean, he was obviously already kind of crazy because he fucking murdered somebody so that he could inherit their money. Which is pretty shitty. Makes him not a good person. But, man, my tits look really great. Just so you guys know. I have a great rack. I'm not gonna lie. I'm quite proud of it. I had absolutely nothing to do with it. But, hey, I won the genetic lottery when it comes to tits. So basically this guy drives himself crazy. And he just like starts talking to himself like in his own head and everything. And then like eventually like he's like out on the street and he's like, oh, none of these people are gonna fucking notice. And basically he really Whew. Excuse me, I apologize. But no, so this guy, he got away scot-free. He's not happy, and he basically drives himself crazy because he's thinking about it too much. He's too much in his own head. And finally, like, he's just out on the street, and he just fucking starts telling everybody, hey, I fucking killed this dude, and I got away with it, and I got all his money. Fuck you. But then everybody's like, well, no. Fuck you. Because now you're gonna die. And we're going to take all that money and we're going to split it up amongst ourselves. And it's going to be great. Yeah, that's exactly how it worked out. That's exactly what they said. You should read it because it's a good example of what not to do. Especially if you just got away with murder. Anyway, I love you guys. Happy Halloween. Be safe. Biden-Harris 2020. Peace out. Later.
Well, that was something.
Yes. Give it up from your living rooms, your toilet seats, your couches, wherever you are for Reverend Spooky Lestrange. Mm-hmm. Well, we're about halfway through the show.
And that means, what does that mean?
Oh God, we are so punch drunk right now. God.
We have.
Oh yeah, so now we're gonna get a little academic for you. In another episode of what we're now calling Lefty Saves Everything. We're bringing you the local New Orleans burlesque performer Lefty Lucy and her, I think, 11th grade English paper on Annabelle Lee.
Amazing.
Yeah, Lefty Saves Everything.
And we appreciate her for it.
Yes. So,
enjoy.
Oh, hello there. My name's Lefty Lucy, and I'm here tonight for Plastered with Poe. But first, I have a sketch night to model for, so I'm going to go do that, and when I come back, I'm going to be plastered, and we're going to talk about Poe. Sound good? Alrighty. See you soon. Hello, and welcome back to me, Lefty Lucy, for Plastered with Poe. Cheers, y'all. All right, so I don't know if you watched Wasted with Will, but I was a special guest to talk about Measure for Measure, where I pulled out my 10th grade scene notebook from my arts high school. I still have my grade 11 paper called An Interesting Twist. Ooh. And as you can see, I got a 45 and I was late. So this might not be very good. I don't think that was out of 50. Oh, God, you guys. Okay, we can do this. We can do this. What makes a poem good? Many have argued this, and it has been said that one thing helps. Honesty. In all of Edgar Allan Poe's poems, he writes only what he knows or desires to, mostly along two constant themes, love and loss, both of which he experienced again and again for wives and his mother. In Poe's final poem, Annabelle Lee, he demonstrates this love and loss theme again but with an optimistically grim twist not found in his other works. The theme of love is dreadfully clear in Annabel Lee. Immediately, Poe sets up a fantastic fairy tale love. He writes, "And this maiden, she lived with no other thought that to love and be loved by me." As in all of his poetry, Poe makes sure the reader is well aware how in love he is, and that this love is mutual. But this is also a formula for disaster, because no love is that ideal. If it looks that way, then those involved are in for trouble. Wow, I was an optimistic teenager. Poe also shows this grand, perfect love with this. But we loved with a love that was more than love. This love is pure. It isn't simply a child calling a friendship love. No, his love is real and is meant to be forever. This love is so inspired, Poe states, with a love that is the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. That is some love, y'all. Shit. He writes like Shakespeare, the greatest love sonnet writer of all time, utilizing tempo and accentuated sounds to make a lovelier, more flowing sound. By comparing this love to that of anything in heaven, especially something as beautiful as the winged seraphs, reflects not only the narrator's love for a girl, but his love for her goddess-like beauty. Those lines show that from the beginning, the narrator felt she was higher than he and already 1 foot in the golden gates of heaven. Not long after, the inevitable theme of loss is presented. At first, Poe is subtle about the love Annabel Lee's death. As the poem continues, it becomes clear his loss is a great one. What makes Annabel Lee special is its optimistic yet grim twist in the end. But how can something optimistic be grim? Immediately after we are told of Annabel Lee's dying, Poe wrote, "But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who are older than we." This shows the speaker's hope. Even though he acknowledges his love's death, he explains that it isn't so much a loss because their love had been so true while she was alive. Then he implies the reason why it is okay she died with this. "And so, all the night tide, I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in the sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb of the surrounding sea." This is grim for the obvious reason that suicide and death are not magnificent or noble things. Though it is strangely romantic, too. He loves this girl so much he doesn't mind giving his life so he might be with her. The way he confesses his plan is so poetic and beautiful that the audience almost feels good to see him die, to be with his sweetheart. In Ulalume, the love and loss themes are apparent, but the optimistic twist is not to be found. Again, the theme of love is thrust upon out in the following comparison. "She is warmer than Diane, with her love in luminous eyes." Again, Poe speaks of the narrator's love's beauty to show why he loves her. Poe accentuates her godlikeness by comparing her to Greek-Roman goddess Diana of beauty and love. The poem goes on to loss by saying, "And I said, 'What is written, sweet sister, on the door of this legended tomb?' She replied, 'Oh, Ulalume, Ulalume.'" I get it now. Okay. Once more, the poor lover's true love is dead, and he finds her sadly. Man, some life that Poe led. It was real sad. It was real sad. Okay, anyway, back to the poem. Essay about the poem. Okay, so, the one who shows him the tomb is the Roman Greek goddess of Psyche, so which insinuates even more so. God damn, I'm worried. Okay, so the bitch who shows him the tomb is the goddess Psyche, which insinuates even more so what a devastating loss this is for the narrator. But nowhere in the end of Ulalume does one feel anything optimistic. In fact, it is exactly the opposite of Annabel Lee. I'm not sure I proved that Annabel Lee ended optimistically yet. Maybe that's happening later. Maybe I'm drunk. I don't know. Okay. But in the end of Ulalume does not feel anything optimistic. In fact, it is exactly the opposite of Annabel Lee. Poe writes, "Then in my heart grew ashen and sober, as the leaves were crisp and sere, as the leaves that were withering and sere," where in Annabel Lee the narrator's heart is warm and full of love, even after his lover's death. Here in Ulalume, the author is bitter and unfeeling. Interesting. For Annie, another poem, successfully demonstrates Poe's common love and loss themes, but neglects to end with the twist found in Annabel Lee. Here, the theme of love is presented on a more physical level, but it is still apparent. Poe writes, "She tenderly kissed me, she fondly caressed." Here, Poe describes that magnificent love with a Hemingway principle. That is, the woman pleases her man, caresses him, loves him, and simply enjoys her blissful life. The man also seems to accept her love willingly. Then comes the inescapable theme of loss. The poem reads, "And I lied, knowing her love, that you fancy me dead, rather than her death or his loss of her. Those lines show he is the one to die. Nevertheless, the loss is just as great." It doesn't not demonstrate his loss of her, but it is still a distinct and terrible loss. Just as in all of Poe's poems, his love is mourning because she lost her love abruptly. Again, the optimistic twist is found in Annabel Lee cannot be seen in For Annie at all, whereas Annabel Lee Ian Annabelle, our storyteller, chooses to kill himself in order to be with his one love again. So it's a reuniting in the afterlife thing. Okay. Anyway, to wrap it up, Into Helen. Written for Miss Sarah Helen Whitman. The optimistic princess is not apparent where the love and lost things are. Poe opens this poem with a beautiful optimistic stanza describing the light and his love being reflected in it. He states, I saw thee once, a full orbed moon, that like thine own. Not long after Annabel Lee was writ, Poe died. For his last poem, he broke the chain of love and loss. Finally, he learned something new about those two ever-present feelings. Though they may not disappear, one can learn from them and still love in the afterlife, having that to look forward to. He can now face death with joy in his heart, because he is soon to be with those many women which he had loved in the mortal realm. Maybe I need to write another essay. Hold the phone, though. I showed you that I got 45 on this paper, but then I just flipped to the drafts, and in my draft, wait, I'm trying to cover up my name. She wrote good on it, and apparently I wrote back, thanks, I'd try, because I've always been a sassy jerk. Guys, I really miss live entertainment. I'm missing out on the actual validation that I can earn from you, and I'm losing my mind. But I'm grateful to have you watching this, and to know that when we watch it together live for Plastered with Poe, I'll get to see your comments in the chat, and it'll be just as good as the waves of applause washing over me. If I've had enough to drink. I love you. I miss you. Cheers. Am I sad now because I've been drinking, or is it Poe? With his death and a little more twist. But I get it now. And once oh God.
Give it up for Lefty Lucy, everybody. Again, pay app information for all of these amazing performers is embedded in the videos and will be in the comments.
You can't tell.
No, I know. She's just taking over the show. TT. Come on. Yeah, I know. You have a lot to say on Edgar Allan Poe.
Well, we've had a lot to say about Edgar Allan Poe so far, but now it's time to talk about For the Love of.
So this week, 1 week only, we're doing something very special. Like we hinted at earlier. Like I said, you can tip the show directly, pay app information in the comments, and all of that money goes to the cast. Feed these starving artists.
Yes,
God
we
knows we
need
need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, we are actually going to be matching all of your donations
Mhm.
to give to For the Love of, which
For the Love of is a local New Orleans-based organization that also raises funds, funnily enough.
funnily enough.
Oh, cheers to that. That was really good. For the Love of uses live entertainment to fundraise for local and national charities. They have raised money for organizations in town like Women with a Vision, STAR, the Sexual Trauma Awareness and Response Team, as well as like a ton of other organizations.
All very good work.
Yeah, no, they're an organization that raises money for organizations, and they also spotlight local artists and entertainers. So they're fucking great, and they're trying to get off the ground and do their thing, and we just want to support them. So you give us money, and we will give them money.
So, what?
We're rolling.
We're rolling.
We're gonna move right along.
We're rolling on into our next performer or
Mhm.
speaker. I mean, it's either way.
Presenter, yeah.
Presenter. That's a good word. It is another local New Orleans-based performer. She's amazing, really cool, and her name is Deanna Dietrich.
Yeah.
What is she doing?
Ooh, she's doing one of my favorites because I love detective stories.
Ooh.
It's one of the first
Ooh.
Poe stories I've ever read. So bringing you The Murders of the Rue Morgue,
Ooh.
Miss Diana Dietrich.
Good evening. My name is Al. I bit myself.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Diana Dietrich, and welcome to my rendition of The Murders in Rue Morgue. And my glass of wine. Cheers! Now, so this is a long story. I'll have 2.5 hours to sit here and make fun of this and read all of it to you. So we're just gonna get Spark Notes, but like the non-copyright version of Spark Notes. But let's start with a toast. What song the sirens sang, or what name Achilles assumed when he hid himself among women? Although puzzling, the questions are not beyond all conjecture. Sir Thomas Browne. So what is this story about? I'll tell you. Oh, your phone does the thing. Nope, that's not how you spelled it. We're off to a great start. Okay, so The Murder in Rue Morgue is a fun read, especially if you're super into true crime, because it just defies all the things you know about true crime. First of all, it's always the husband. Second of all, when someone is brutally murdered, why would you think of silly, impossible things? That being said, starts off with a narrator who's just chilling out with his roommate. He's talking all kinds of like very specific analytical things that are going to apply to the story. But it is about being able to look at a situation properly with no expectations and then determine from that what your next move should be. So he's hanging out with his roommate, a guy named C. Auguste Dupin. Dupin? It's French. And they're just hanging out. Then they read the newspaper. Turns out, real horrific murder happened, right? Wow, so unusual for that time that 2 women would just be murdered. I forgot where I was going with this. I told you I can't get too drunk because I'll forget the story. Oh, right. So, this older woman and her daughter are both murdered. The neighbors hear a loud shriek, and then them and the police show up, and they break into the apartment, and they're confused, because, like, how could the murderer leave? There's no signs of breaking or entering. Like, the key is still in the door, and I'm trying to figure out how to hold this with my thighs, but they're too powerful. Anywho, maybe my knee's perfect. All right. And so the first thing they discover, shitloads of blood, I think. Anyway, the next thing they discover is the daughter is like been choked and her body is just shoved up the chimney like Santa Claus, right? So her body has just been stuffed up the chimney, which, by the way, if you're gonna murder somebody, you're gonna hide the evidence. First of all, clean up the crime scene. There's fucking blood everywhere. There's a razor just chilling out, covered in blood. Oh, I forgot your password. Anyway, so they did a fucking terrible job. There's shit everywhere. There's like a clump of hair just chilling. And then they just shoved it. They're like, I know what to do with this. We'll hide it in the chimney. They'll never know there was a murder. Is your phone dying?
No, stop.
There's like money left there, so like Robert's gonna just kill some people and not take some money. He's just gonna spend all their time shoving a woman up a fucking chimney and not take the money. And also there's just like an open safe. Just like, alright, he's gotta have taken something, right? And then they like travel further and I notice like the mom, she's outside in the courtyard. She'd been thrown to her death. She had been badly beaten. They get down there and they like look at her and it turns out her head's not even attached to her body. Probably has something to do with that razor they found that was covered in blood. Anywho, casual. The next morning, the newspaper comes out again. They're like, hey, remember that really horrific murder that happened that we were talking about? Oh, and everyone was like mildly racist, telling the police about two voices that they heard. So like one was like shrill, the other one was like deep. One of them was definitely a French dude, and then they just made a ton of speculations about what the other thing could be. And they're just like, who knows? Could be. I think he might have been Russian. He could have been tons of things. Anyway, that's why eyewitness testimony is garbage every time. If you know anything about true crime, it's always the husband, and eyewitness testimony is garbage. And also, the police, not very good at doing their jobs. You'll find that out in a minute. And so, it turns out that they arrest this guy who knows C. Auguste Dupin. I've never heard it spoken out loud. That being said, so they arrest this guy, and he's like, no, couldn't have been this dude. I've got it. I'll just, me, a casual civilian person, tell the police I want to look at the crime scene, and they'll be like, sure, because the police don't care. And then he goes to the crime scene, and he like checks everything out. And he's like, you people are fucking idiots and don't know how to do your job. First of all, you've made a mess of this crime scene. How you could get anything from it, who's to say? Clearly came in through the window. That's why the door was still locked. People are stupid. He's not a magician. Can't just disappear. Alright? Second, these women were so badly beaten, couldn't have been a human. Alright? Seems silly to say that. You're like, oh no, it's Edgar Allan Poe, so it's gotta be creepy. What is it, like a monster? A ghost? Serial killer who hears things at night and he's all upset about it? That's a different story. I don't even think that's how that story goes. Anyway, so he just like surveys the scene and he's like, I've got it. There's a guy who's in the Navy. He's got an orangutan. Hear me out. This orangutan escapes from this guy's closet because he keeps it in the closet. And it came over here, and he was like, no, come back. And that was the deep French voice you heard. And then it beat the shit out of these women, decapitated them, grabbed a razor and was like, let me just fuck up this lady, choked out the other lady, had the forethought to just shove her up a chimney, because orangutans. And then sure enough, the guy who owns the orangutan, who's in the Navy, shows up and was like, yeah, checks out, absolutely did happen. My bad. And that's it. That's the whole story. But it reminds me of the time that I worked at the zoo. And for a while, there would be chaos the morning after a close of sorts. The nightly close. There'd be trash cans flipped over. There'd be animals that were upset for some reason. And it turns out the orangutans were escaping from their exhibit at night and causing chaos. So, I mean, it checks out. Also, the police don't know how to do their job. Were they involved at the zoo? No. I don't think anyone asked them to do anything. But they were utterly useless in that situation. Am I at 10 minutes yet? Okay, thanks!
Ooh, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Which, of course, I expected nothing less of her.
Yes. Give it up for Diana Dietrich, everybody.
Cheers to that.
Ooh. Ooh. Again, pay app information in the comments. Tip her directly or tip us directly, and we will match and donate all of your monies to For the Love Of.
Get tipsy, get tippy.
Yeah. You did it.
It was bad, but unfortunately, we have just one more presenter for you this evening on this spookiest of days.
Mm-hmm. Every day is a spooky day when we're talking about Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes, or if you're, us.
Yeah. This light stays up in my house all year round.
We didn't name ourselves Sundown Striptease for no reason. We wanted the Western and the vampirism and the very spooky vibe.
We live the lifestyle, is what we're saying.
Yes. It's not a phase, Mom.
This is me. Without further ado, I want to bring you our last presenter, who is very special in that she is the founder of For the Love Of.
What?
She created this amazing
Coincidence.
organization. Yeah, I know, right? It was created out of profound fear and frustration and just a willingness to not let the bad guys win.
Hell yeah.
I
Am I allowed to say hell on TV?
think you can say hell, yeah. Piccola is one of the strongest people that I know. So, I have no doubt that this organization is going to be very successful and help a lot of people. She's fucking determined as hell. And
Hell yeah.
yeah. What she is going to bring you, we've got a little bit of a repeat, but we figured it was worth it. She's going to bring you her wasted interpretation of Annabelle Lee.
Ooh.
I mean, it's such a popular and important poem that we've got to do it twice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, please enjoy this hammered interpretation of Annabelle Lee by none other than Piccola Tushy.
I'm Edgar Allan Poe. This is my crow, my raven.
Just kidding, everybody. It's me, Piccola Tushy. I am super excited to be a part of this production of Plastered with Poe. It's a little early though right now, so I can't even get started because I haven't gotten plastered yet. So I don't know. It's like 6:15, I guess, right now. Edgar's he's pretty sober right now too. So happy to be here. I gotta get plastered. So does this guy, and I will be drinking lots and lots and lots of red wine. I'll see you in a couple hours. Actually, I'm not gonna see you at all, and it's gonna be like a click something. It's going to be a quick edit. You don't have to wait for me to get plastered. In your time, it'll be really, really quick. All right, so I'm not going to recite all of it, but here we go. It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea, where a maiden that you may know was me. It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea, where a maiden that lived, whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden, she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child, she was a child by this kingdom by the sea. We loved with a love that was more than love. I and my Annabel Lee, with a love. Oh wait, and that's where it goes blank. All right, okay, that's as much as I remember. No, not. That's as much as I remember from memorizing the poem. But what I do remember from, oh my God. Alright, so the poem goes on. I'm so shit-faced. Okay. The poem goes on. And it's such a beautiful poem. And it's such a great poem about, oh my God, I'm so drunk. They had this amazing love. It was such a amazing love. Like, to where angels were fucking angry about their love. It was like, oh, hey, they coveted. But no, they were so angry about their love that I think I got it right. I don't know. I'm just doing shit. Okay, so, no. Their love was so fucking amazing and so fucking beautiful that the angels in heaven. Okay, right now. Oh, that's all the wine I drank. That's it. That's all. Okay. Okay. So, anyway. The angels got so mad that they killed her. They were like, oh, you have this love that we'll never have. That we'll never, ever feel. So, fuck you. Die now, bitch. Boom. And they killed her. They fucking killed her. Alright, let me see if I can. I'm gonna try and get. Anyway. he never stopped loving her. He never stopped loving her. Like, he slept in this ocean by the sea. I want to figure out something. Come on. Anyway. Hold on. I'm shitfaced. I'll edit. I'm gonna do this in post. Where are the clouds? Oh God, I am fucking drunk. Okay, that's gonna say it. I am drunk and I just want some fucking clouds. Can I just have some clouds? Come on. Come on. Give me some clouds. I have no idea what my glass of wine is. Okay, but he loved her. And she loved him. Just wait. I'm gonna go get another glass of wine. My introduction to Edgar Allan Poe was Annabelle Lee. His love for her. The darkness of it all. He was my first celebrity crush. That hasn't done much for me. It's been pretty terrible. But that love, I won't accept anything less than that love. I'm doing my best right now because I'm drunk. I'm dreamy drunk. Sorry, trying to. I'm shit-faced right now. I'm shit-faced. Anyway, oh God, that was long. Anyway, that was my favorite poem. It was his last poem. Or his last complete poem that he ever wrote. But it was my first poem that I ever read of him. And it was the best. He was my first celebrity crush. I love him. Oh, and also why I'm still single. Because there's never, ever, ever, ever been a man who loved me as much as he loved Annabelle Lee. I have so much editing to do.
I love it. I really, really love it.
Hooray!
Again, another amazing presentation from Pika Latoshi. Thank you so much for sticking with us this whole journey tonight, if you will.
Mm-hmm. It was a journey, wasn't it?
Indeed, it was.
So this is a limited series. So we've got two more coming at you.
No.
The
And
following
you don't
Sundays.
want to miss them.
Mm-hmm.
You thought that tonight was incredible. Wait till you see what we got in store for you.
Mm-hmm. And we promise we'll be much more high energy next time.
Well, I mean, you can make that promise. This is
It's just who you are, and it's fine.
yeah.
So we're gonna continue to drink our cider and wish you all a good night.
So I'm gonna finish out my evening, hanging out with my dick and cider and keep making all the best puns. That's what.
Dick and cider.
Cider.
It's really good. It really is very clever. Anyway, we love you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this fun, weird little show, and we will see you next week with much more Plastered with Poe.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I scared the shit out of her by booping her on the nose.
Oh, you don't like to be booped?
No, she does not. So cute.